Welcome back to the White, Gray, Black Weekly Manga Podcast. This is the podcast where we talk all about your favorite ongoing Japanese manga. My name is Bruce. I am the proprietor of the White, Gray, Black YouTube channel. With me again this week is the goalie on my silly Hokkaido hockey team. It's Gautam.
Hello, hello.
This week, we're going to take in all of DogsRed, the first 11 chapters, since it's now officially available in the West on Manga Plus and Viz. We're going to chat about the true spiritual successor to Shokugeki no Soma, Service Wars, Chapter 33, and we'll finish things off by chatting about the ending of the current arc of DandaDan, Chapter 128. All that, manga news, and more coming right up. So let's jump right into DogsRed. I did not grab individual pages for this because I think we should just talk about the sort of what's been released of the series so far, what we think about it. We talked about chapter 1 of this, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 months ago now, and really like the first, I think, 2 or 3 chapters that came out then. We're 11 chapters in now. Gautam, this is officially, like I mentioned, on Manga Plus and Viz, if you want to read it there. How do you feel about DogsRed? Are you current on it? How much have you read? How do you like it?
I think I'm maybe just 1 chapter behind. I read, I think, 10. So I'm pretty current on it. I love it. I think it's the strongest of, well, one of the strongest as far as recent sports outings in manga form. I think maybe tied with MMA for me. It is, I think DogsRed is a very good, do we call it DogsRed or DogsSled? You know, because I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I think it's DogsRed.
Yeah. Let's call it DogsRed until the localization corrects us.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's what they brought it over as on Manga Plus. So, and I think it's, where'd it go? Yeah, I mean, it's called DogsRed in the West, so that's what we'll call it.
Easy enough.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I think it's great. I think the main character being this kind of diva with just a bunch of baggage is awesome. It is very much show don't tell as well. And I feel like our other hockey manga, I don't think they keep up in my opinion. I think it's just so much better than our other hockey manga. It was 2 on Ice, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's figure skating, but yeah, the other skating, newish ice skating manga, I guess. Yeah, I like this a lot too. I've noticed it's kind of funny because, I started reading manga really heavily, right around 5.5, 6 years ago, and nothing sports related I feel like has ever really stood out to me. I've tried to read a couple of things, and then in the past 6 months, not even 5 months here, we've gotten, I think, 3 new sports manga that are all like really exceptionally good. I think it's DogsRed, I think it's MMA, like you mentioned, and then I think it's that Rugby Rumble. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, Rugby.
Rumble and DogsRed are like almost the same story. They're like they're very much in the same vein of this sort of like very goofy main character who's kind of hidden skilled or skilled in another way. But yeah, DogsRed I think is really good. Something you called out that I like a lot about it, like you mentioned, is there's a lot of show don't tell, and there's a lot of past baggage with the main character and his family and his sister, and there's also a lot of history with the other teams and stuff going on. It feels very much like a story that is occurring at a point in time and is not sort of the entirety of the story, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of stories like to be like, well, yeah, the main character was born and grew up, but nothing really mattered until they, turned 16 and started fighting demons, right? Like nothing really matters I'm trying to think of a good example of it. Like nothing really matters in Bleach until like Ruika crashes, like loses her powers and crashes on Earth or whatever, right? Like
that's a really good point. I didn't consider that, but that is an aspect I think brings a lot of character nuance. Mm-hmm. Is, of course, like as people, a lot of our behaviors are formed as children. And it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense that his childhood and his sister's childhood are affecting them now. Mm-hmm. And you're right. You don't see that too often.
Yeah, well, and I think it speaks to how well I know that this author is really well regarded for his other work, Golden Kamui. And I know that Golden Kamui also has a big sort of historical aspect to it of the, oh gosh, I'm going to forget. There's a name of like sort of an indigenous people in Hokkaido that is centered around kind of what Golden Kamui is centered around. So it's interesting, a couple things. And one, that they've gone back to Hokkaido. I don't know if the author is a Hokkaido local. I kind of assume two like major stories taking place there kind of seems to me like they might be. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it makes the story feel much more alive because you hear, I don't remember if this is in chapter 11 or chapter 10, but one of the most recent chapters, right? There's like a very brief flashback of there's two brothers who play on like the best team in the area, and it flashes back to them like when they're really young and the team is still winning. And it goes to show it's like, you know, this big team that's part of this first arc has like a 19-year win streak, and they're going for 20 years this year, and that's like a big part of it. And that's just a cool way to show, yeah, that, like I said, it's this like, it feels very much like a natural world that our main character has been dropped into. And while that's kind of a common story beat to kind of drop your character into an unfamiliar place, the fact that it's more like you've just kind of dropped your character into another town with a different sport. And like, you know, the people have lived there and they all have their own thing. I don't know, it just feels very like, it feels very natural and good. I don't even know if I want to use the word like world building, but it is, I think, in my opinion, a form of like very, very good world building in that, yes, it's a real world, but all of this historical stuff, all of these sort of like details that have been planted. I mean, is it the guy's grandpa who gives him like his old glove and his old skates to use to play hockey with?
And he was on like an Olympic.
He's on the Olympic team in like the 70s. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. Like all this stuff is just like, I don't want to say it's like, it's not incidental, but it's just there to just like world build, right? I mean, this is just kind of world building, and it's a really good version of that. It's really cool and interesting.
Yeah, and let me correct one thing we said before people call us out. Okay, Ichiko did have trauma, Naruto did have trauma, and that influenced their actions as adults. But you're right, it feels more natural.
Yeah, but nothing else in the world mattered, right? Maybe the character has a flashback to old stuff that they did, but like the world around them was unimportant until the big event happened, right? Whereas here it feels like, oh, everyone else has their own lives going. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why I was searching for an example, because it's hard to find an example. I mean, like something like One Piece is something that does it really well, right? Where like, yes, clearly there was like these other eras, this historical stuff that's all weaved in really well. I didn't want to call out something.
And just, yeah. It feels natural because I feel like the depiction of trauma being kind of impartial for everyone surrounding him, except for him and his sister. I don't know. That feels more nuanced.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is just strong, good, solid writing. I think of the three sports things you mentioned, MMA, this DogsRed, and Rugby Rumble. This one I think is most likely to survive and go the distance. It has a notable name. Golden Kamui is a big, big series. It like just got a live action series or movie released. I'm not sure. That I think was pretty popular in Japan. The art here is great. Like really like the stylized art. The characters, man, how do you describe this kind of like character art style where people like look a little weird? Like the main character just has these little dashes under his eyes, and there's like no real reason, and it's just kind of like that. And people just have like weird shaped eyebrows is like the most common thing I'm noticing on all the characters in this. It's like, what do their eyebrows look like?
It's like the child of One Piece and JoJo, where they're all freakishly tall and they have weird eyebrows.
Now that you make the JoJo call out, I can definitely see that comparison. Like it has got a little bit of JoJo blood in it for sure.
The dude is gigantic.
Yeah, everybody's
he's like 16 or 15 or something.
Yeah, I mean this is the folly of all manga and anime is, it's an extremely buff guy who looks 6 feet tall, and then you look at the stats and it's like this guy is 15 and he's 5'5".
Yeah, true. Yeah, everyone could just be like way shorter.
Although in JoJo it's like, okay, yeah, Jotaro is what? He is 16, but he is also like 6 feet tall, like 180 pounds or whatever. Although he's like, anyways.
Even if he wasn't, even if he was 5'5", he's built like a fucking brick shit house, you know, like, but either way, back to DogsRed, I completely agree. I think it's weird, it's fun, and it has all the things that make Golden Kamuy charming as well. How much have you read any of that?
I haven't read any of it. It's high on my list. I just recently, we'll go over it at the very end, but I just recently sort of caught up on one of the things that I've been meaning to catch up on, and so I'm going to start something new coming up. So maybe it'll be Golden Kamuy, maybe something else, but I have not read any of it. I've seen some pictures from it and some pages and stuff, but
awesome. Yeah, it's fun. It's I'd say it has like this odd.
There's something just charming about it, right? Like in DogsRed,
it's also just weird. It's also just like weird, and I don't know how to describe that weird energy it exudes, but it's a good weird.
Yeah, I think that's in DogsRed too, right? Like there's just a little bit of that. Like sometimes things are like silly, but this DogsRed goes like a little like wacky or zany, right? Like I'm thinking of one of the, like, I don't know, it's chapter 7 or 8 when he's playing and he like stops his skates like perpendicular and just like marches on him, and everyone's like, I didn't expect him to do that. Where'd that come from?
I love that. Yeah, that his figure skating and like dodging abilities are. I don't know. It makes sense and it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's great. I will say if I have to levy one sort of complaint or maybe detractor to this, it's that I love the main character and I think he is exceptional. And when he's not the focus, it's a little less compelling for me. The last couple of chapters, I think it's chapter like 9, 10, 11, maybe something like that, are sort of like this other team competing. And the main character's there, but he's like not the focus of it. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and it's not as interesting because the main character is so wacky and fun and out there, and you like love him from like the first couple of pages, as we mentioned when we talked about chapter 1. So not having him be the crux, the center, I think takes a little bit out of it. But also the side characters are pretty good so far. I'm curious. I know you didn't read chapter 11, but I don't think that reveals too much. It's just sort of the end of the game that they've been playing.
Okay.
I can't really see where this is going, because I thought at first, I was like, oh yeah, the main character, he'll go play for the small team and the small team will go and stand up to the big guys. But that kind of doesn't actually feel like where it's going now. So I'm not sure where it's going. Do you have any input on that?
You know, that's a good point. I feel like it's still that he's going to play for the small team somehow, because there's no point introducing all of them and their plight otherwise, it feels like. I don't know. Unless it's all of that setup is just for his first test game. Which I don't think so. You know.
Yeah, it does still seem the most likely. I guess. I mean, I'll like minorly spoil you on chapter 11 because a lot of stuff happens in it. But the people who are almost going to win for 20 years lose in chapter 11, right? Which is like, I kind of saw that coming. I don't know if you did, but
that's a cool thing. I thought it would just show them as like the big bads kind of rivals.
No, and so maybe that's what's really mixing me up, because it's shown a lot of like the two brothers who play for that team and the coach, who I thought the coach was really funny. And when he talks to the main character and he's like, hey, by the way, you can kick the puck, or like you can touch the puck with your skates. And he's like, oh, and then he does the wacky move. So I really like the coach from there. So that's kind of why I'm wondering if this is going to be more of like, maybe that team blows up. And so they, maybe the brothers go and play for the smaller school along with the main character, or maybe the main character goes to that school. I don't know. I'm kind of curious about how it's going to actually play out, but I think that it clearly is not playing out in the typical way, right? Because the typical way these play out, right, the way that stuff like iShield 21 and a bunch of these other sports manga play out is
every single sports manga.
Just about all of it. It's, like here's some superstar guy who isn't practiced or doesn't want to play on the team. We convince him to play, right? We blow out some, medium good team in the first game, or, do something outstanding, even if they lose. And then the whole rest of the series is just, well, we got to beat the big guys down the road, right? Like that's kind of how it works. And this one is kind of straight away from that. So
that's interesting because now that you mention it, that is the trope in every single sports anime or manga. It was the same in Major. It's the same in Haikyuu. It's whatever, right? It's like
Haikyuu's a little bit different, but yeah, it's definitely very similar. Yeah,
they join a team that is generally losing.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe they used to be good, but they are a losing team.
Yeah, joining a losing team is the step one of like every sports thing.
Yeah. So I wonder, I can't imagine them not going down that path, because I don't know how you make it interesting if you don't. The underdog story feels like so tied with the sports genre, so tied in. And it's just like free emotional
satisfaction at the end, right? Like
exactly.
There's always a payoff when the underdogs win, right? Like always. So
everyone wants a Rudy moment,
For sure.
Yeah, I have no idea where they'll go, but
I'm interested, because it seems to clearly be setting up kind of like secondary protagonists in these brothers, but they're on the enemy team, so maybe they're rivals. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the fact is it's fleshing out all of these sort of different aspects so well that it's confusing me because, like we said, generally when you read a sports manga, it's like, oh yeah, that's the main character, joins the losing team. I kind of can tell you beat for beat how it's going to go. They'll win a lot of them. They'll lose some of them. They'll either, if it's going to be a long continuation, they will lose the key game the first year and then win it the second or third year. That's kind of the Haiku thing, right? Where it's like, Haiku is great at that though, in that like you get good character payoffs and then they will lose the game and you'll be like, oh shit, but it's their first year. So don't worry. There's 2 more years of this.
Shit, buddy. It's not just anime and manga. It's like Rocky does this.
I think for sure this is a sports trope, not necessarily a Japanese sports manga anime trope. But yeah, I mean, anything else you want to mention about DogsRed? I think the art is great. The action, action paneling I think is really good in it. Really interesting. I like the character designs. I like the characters. I'm interested to hear more about the sister, and there's sort of the ice skating rival friend who's here. I'm surprised at how much there is going on in these like 10 or 11 chapters.
I don't have much else to say on it because it's still pretty new. But aside from what we already said, that it's like just fucking solid. I do think more people should read it. It feels pretty underread in the West at the very least.
Yeah,
I don't see
a
lot of talk on it.
It is. I mean, like yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, it was like maybe Wednesday or Thursday this week where it showed up in the West, all 11 chapters. So, I mean, I've seen some, I saw Mother's Basement tweet about it today, that he was reading it and thought it was really good. So, I mean, I think it's going to pick up a lot more traction now that it's out. So,
oh, good. Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to see this keep going and MMA keep going.
I really hope MMA keeps going. I don't think I had that in the news. I think it's sort of right on the line of maybe being too low of its Volume 1 sales, which I think its Volume 1 came out like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago.
That's sad.
It wasn't the amount of sales for Volume 1 where you go, oh, that's set. No worries about that. It was kind of like...
But it was pretty good.
So generally, Volume 1 sales for the past maybe 2 or 3 years, if you hit 15K Volume 1, you're usually okay. Almost everything that has been canceled ends up in the range of like 1,500 to 4,000. And I think MMA was somewhere in the like 6, 7, 8,000 range. So it's kind of like, is that enough? Is it not enough? I don't know. I think it really does depend maybe if the sales go up or down. Because I think if you start at 8,000 and then your Volume 2 does, 9 or 10,000, if they see that you're going up, people are more interested in this. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's I don't want to say I'm unconfident in it because I like it a lot. I hope it survives. I think it's really good. But it's just right on that line of sales where I'm not sure.
I think it'll stick around until Shonen Jump does the thing where it weeds out all of the bad stuff.
It'll be next spring if it does. Yeah. It'll probably make it to February or March if it does get canceled. So.
I could see this going like 80 chapters then. That's a shame. It's so much better than I feel
it's
like
really
a lot
good,
of other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, just to call it the last one, Rugby Rumble is the other one that I'm just like, I'm in on that every week now. That's so much fun. It's the exact same sports thing. We saw huge, incredibly athletic man joins a rugby game, doesn't know how to play, underdog team, rival guy leads the team. That one feels equally as good. It feels like very similar to DogsRed, to be honest, but in like the right ways and different enough. It's like it's a different sport. So
I'd say Rugby Rumble feels more like it goes through the same beats as every other sports thing than the other two we mentioned. But I think it's super fun. It's super fun. The art is great, like you said.
It's like maybe the funniest of the three, I think.
And the most like just flat out, I'd say, quote unquote, fun. It's like, it's dumb fun. It feels like a lot of the time. And
it's a little bit more, there's less of these kind of serious world building undertones from DogsRed or MMA kind of got the family drama. This one's just sort of like, big dumb guy plays rugby and it's really fun. Like that's it.
Yeah.
But it is really fun though. Yeah.
I do think it has a bad name.
You don't like Rugby Rumble? I think it's okay. I wonder if its name in Japanese is something else, because that
it sounds like an N64 game, Rugby Rumble.
I want to check what the Japanese name is, because surely it's not. Rugby Rumble seems like it would be a very hard, like, translation thing. Let me see. Okay, I have to go to Mal to do this, right? Because like all the other places aren't going to have it listed. Come on. Nope. The only thing it has here
I'm kind of
is
curious.
It
It's just
no Outlaw.
it just the name is just feels like baby's first alliteration, but
yeah, that's why I was wondering what the Japanese name was, because if the name in Japanese, is like, rugby attack or something, and it's like, oh, we'll Americanize it to Rugby Rumble or whatever. Who knows? But cool. Anything else on DogsRed though? A little bit of a sports manga section. Cool. Let's move on. I want to talk about what I think is actually maybe the funniest manga running right now, which is Service Wars. And Service Wars is, how do I even describe it? If you like the sort of over-the-top, clothes exploding goofiness of Shokugeki no Soma, of how it's like, oh yeah, it's a cooking competition, but really it's about, tricking the opponent or doing something wild and crazy. This is Shokugeki no Soma, but it's about being a service worker and is dialed up to like 37. Like, it is way dialed up. This page looking at right now, this is our main character riding on top of the god of service who he summoned in the last chapter, fighting this like god of bad service, or this like demon thing on the other side. And it's just like,
that's hilarious.
It's so fucking funny. And he like slaps him and is like, he's deflating. He popped like a balloon. And it like flashes and he's like restored to like his normal state. This panel is also exceptionally funny. This guy wearing the sort of center sash with like the close cut haircut in the bottom right, in the bottom right and the top left. He like 4 or 5 chapters ago got like tossed. They were doing this service competition, right? This company that like owns all of these things was initially trying to put the main girl's Chinese food restaurant out of business. They held this big like service rumble. It's a whatchamacallit?
Service rumble.
Yeah, but anyways, He gets like thrown off this tower and gets like completely impaled through the center of him. And this whole page is so funny. It's like, no way, dude, the waistband that bro put on you, it softened the blow. And she's like, I could have sworn that spike went right through you. And it did. We saw the spike go through him in that chapter. And he's like, it did not. Thanks to the service energy infused in this waistband. And she's like, no, it definitely did. He's like, it did not. Like, I saw it. Blood went flying everywhere. If it hadn't, that amount of blood would make zero sense. He says, I've never been pierced by anything in my entire life. She's like, it did. It totally freaking did.
This is high level gaslighting. I love it.
It's absolutely hilarious because it's just like, yeah, he absolutely took that spike to the chest, and now it's just like, it's just the sort of like, oh, no one can die in cartoons or whatever, but it's like, it's just goofy and explained. And at the end of this chapter, the like true final, I think this is on its way out, even though it's fucking great and people should read it, because this is like the chairman of the bad corporation shows up with his own like mech called like Tajima version 2.0. And he's taken some like super serum. They have this like super service serum that they gave to QQ, the guy at the start who got like deflated or whatever, to make him like a super service guy. Because originally he was working, like they did a flashback for him too that was hilarious, where it's like he's working like 8 service jobs at the same time. So he's wearing this uniform that has like half of his hat is for like an ice cream shop and the other half is for like a flower shop. And then he's wearing like half a suit and the other half is for like a gas station and half his pants are this. And he just looks ridiculous. And he's doing like 8 jobs at the same time. And so the evil corporation like recruits him and does all this stuff.
That's hype.
Yeah.
That is the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life.
It's so dumb and it's so funny. This series started and I was like, this is pretty funny. This is pretty good. I like this. And then it like, they spend maybe like 8 or 9 chapters in the little shopping district with the girl in her Chinese restaurant, like kind of fighting off attackers there. And then once they leave to go to this contest. And on the way there, two of the main like service guys, the sort of like main character and his like rival, who's like a good person rival, not a bad person rival. They come across a grizzly bear, and that actually might be the funniest chapter of a manga like I have ever read. It is they service the grizzly bear, and it is so great. This series is hilarious. Like I cannot.
Didn't this series start with the main character fighting a grizzly bear for like a piece of fish or like a salmon or something?
Oh, maybe it did. I don't remember. It's been a while. I mean, it's been just like a little over half a year, I guess, now that this has been published. So I don't remember chapter 1 because it's just like, oh, chapter 1 was plain and boring compared to where we are now. I don't know. I adore this. Reading comedy is always really hard for me. There's not a whole lot of books that I find really funny. Sometimes I'll laugh and go, oh, that's cute, or I'll smile at it. And manga too, it's like, sometimes there are jokes. I think Kaguya-sama is really funny. Especially the first maybe like half of that series is, I think, really, really funny. But other than that, not a whole lot of manga have made me sort of like legitimately like laugh and smile in a way that Service Wars has. Like there's a little bit of it in Shokugeki no Soma, what I've read and seen. But Shokugeki no Soma is a little bit more just like, oh, haha, that's funny because it's wild, or like, oh, people's clothes are exploding because of the food. It isn't like they made a joke here that is really funny, or like they have made this character so wacky that I am laughing. Like the Service Wars is great.
This is just Gintama energy exuding from this.
Yep, I think this is influenced exactly by stuff like Gintama, where it's just wacky and goofy. And anyways, I love it. This is the end of the chapter. The main guy has maybe potentially stepped on everyone. I assume they're all going to make it through though, because that's the kind of thing it is.
Oh, that's great. I I love the impaling joke.
It's even better because it's like, I think he just like showed up at the end of last chapter and everyone was like, wait a minute, like didn't you get impaled?
Did you fucking die, bro? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those, there's a bunch of these little gems I think that pop up on Jump Plus and on Manga Plus over here in the West that are just like, they're not for everyone. But if they're for you, they're like really good. And this one is for me specifically. I mentioned when we talked about it early on that it's like, oh, because I've worked in a restaurant, this is a little bit funnier for me. I think that's all gone out the window. The first couple of chapters, yeah, that definitely, it was appealing more to me because it was making funny jokes about serving people in restaurants. Now it's off the cuff.
Now it's just insane. No sense. Now it's just insane. Yeah, I get it. They escalated like a million times in a row.
They legitimately did. I mean, this is only like chapter 33. Like in the past like 10 chapters, it's gone from like, a 10 to a 100. They have like one-on-one. It's a tournament arc is what it is. That's the word I was looking for earlier. They essentially do like a tournament arc, and the people there are like this incredibly like tall, buff woman who is a airline stewardess. There's a guy who I think is just named like Mr. Lawson, or they might change his name very slightly, who's a convenience store clerk, but he's like the best convenience store clerk ever, which is a play on the Lawson's Lawson's brand, which is a Japanese convenience store thing. Maybe they call it like Mr. Layson or something, right? But it's very much he's intended to just be named like Lawson, like that's who he is.
Right.
And they have all these competition, like it's a 1v1, and they service each other, and it's just so funny, man.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the SpongeBob episode where they had the fry cook games. This seems like the manga version of the fry cook games.
That sounds like probably a pretty good comparison. I would say SpongeBob. Yeah. This is very close to getting to SpongeBob levels of like wacky and wild and weird.
Yeah, it seems insane.
Yeah, but cool. I mean, I don't know. If you have any more questions, I don't have much else to say about this other than it's good. You should go read it. It's really fun.
Hell yeah. Nope. Let's go to DandaDan.
Yeah, let's do it. We've gone through our goofiness. Let's get to our sick shit. DandaDan chapter 120.
With a little bit of goofiness.
Always a little.
Yeah, I don't know. DandaDan just... there's like not too much to say because DandaDan just does it. It just does it so well. Yeah. And this is like a pretty much... I wouldn't say a new character, but effectively to us, it's a new character because we're just getting her development. And we haven't even been given as much of a backstory in her as we have with like Ira and anyone else. But we still hit the emotional beat at the end so well. So this is like kind of the climax of her flashback arc, where they're trying to purge a spirit that's attached to her, and it's a childhood friend of hers who died, and they both made promises to be idols as a kid. Of course, that didn't work out because on the way to pick her up, her friend died in a car crash, and they had a fight right before that. So there's just like a bunch of pent up emotion on her part because she didn't get any closure, and that's what this whole arc is for. And at the end, her and her friend do the idol thing to purge all the ghosts, and it's just a sweet chapter. I feel like I'm abridging it for you guys, but you should go read it. It really hits the emotional beats you want it to, and it's just all around sweet.
Yeah, and again, it
looks amazing.
Yeah, the art is awesome. This just kind of goes to show the mastery that that this author has over just like how to do a story arc. Like, because we start and we get to school and we've met this, like you said, like a new girl, how many 8 or 10 chapters ago, whatever it was. She has this problem. She has this thing weighing on her. They take her back to grandma, blah, blah. I mean, it just like, it sets it up. You understand, oh, well, I've got this history. This is Tatsuya Yukinobu the like second god of flashbacks after like Oda from One Piece, who is like just does like the best flashbacks. This guy's like second to me. Like, you want a good flashback that like really fleshes out characters and really tells the story and like occurs at the right time and happens sort of sequentially with where the final part of the flashback is revealed. That's when like the climax happens, which is what happens in this chapter. It's just like so perfect. It's just like, I hate to say perfect storytelling because storytelling can't be perfect, but like, it's just exceptional. It's just so good.
Well, this whole thing is subjective. I think you can say perfect storytelling.
Yeah. To me, this is like, DandaDan is consistently, every arc is like perfect storytelling. Sets up everything.
I agree. It just doesn't
the growth happens. Something that, I don't know if I've mentioned it too much on the podcast, but something that a lot of the fantasy authors, and especially Brandon Sanderson, who I'm a huge fan of, you'll hear me mention him a lot. He talks about how when you are doing a climax, having the character climax, the character resolution happen at the same time as an action climax, that's when he knows that's when you really grab people and it's really impactful. It's one thing to have sort of the character have their climax be like, okay, gird their loins and then march off to have their action climax. Or you can do what DandaDan does, which I think is like better almost always across the board, of where, here's the character climax on this page, right? Of like making up, can we sing it together? Let's do this. And then boom, the next couple of pages is the action climax of them singing and taking everything out. And then as soon as that's over, you get sort of the emotional resolution of the two of them crying. And I put these last pages in here because it's just like, man, DandaDan knows how to end a chapter. And I think I've also talked about this in the past, but like being able to end a chapter well to make you remember how it ended when you pick up the next chapter a week later, right? 7 full days later, is so great. This one is better because this is not what's coming next is going to be big, or we've started a new sort of rising action, and that's what I remember. This one is like a final point of this is the close of this arc, and it just ends with this picture of them as kids. And I love on the right side of the page here how Granny is just lights up her cigarette and turns around as the new girl is crying. I don't know. Granny is such a great character in the series. Yeah, I love everybody, awesome. But like she's really great. DandaDan is so good.
She's my second favorite Granny in the series.
Yeah,
I like Turbo Granny. She's hilarious too.
Turbo Granny is also great. Yep.
This series has a normal Granny and a Turbo Granny, and the normal Granny is not normal either.
The normal Granny also pretty weird.
This actually reminds me of I know things are just reminding me of things, but this reminds me of the end of Vigilantes, the final fight, where it does the action the same way Brandon Sanderson mentioned it, where the character climax and the action climax happen at the same time.
They coincide, yep.
But what reminds me of it is kind of the flashback to childhood. It's such an effective tool. Like I teared up at the end of this, and it was like I think this last panel did it. You know, this
when it's done well. Like I don't think it's specifically just like, oh, kid flashbacks always work, but like when someone really does like any flashback executed well, and then a well executed like emotional climax, like this is just like good writing. Like there's just no other way to say it. It's like this is just good writing, good drawing, good action. It all ties together. It's just like DandaDan is just like the whole deal. It just has everything.
What would you say is the best backstory or the best like kind of flashback DandaDan has had?
Ooh, that's a really tough question, actually.
Yeah, for me it's between Ira's, which I think was the saddest and most emotionally impactful, and gosh, what's Dino Girl's name? Hers.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking. I can't remember.
Vamola.
Yeah, Vamola. Yeah.
Yeah, one of theirs because it was just so good.
Yeah, it's definitely between those two. Ira's, I think, was maybe best because it was like, I don't know. I like Ira's a lot because it's brief and compact and still really impactful. Like I think it's just one full chapter, right? Of it like showing the mother and like losing her daughter and going through all that stuff. And then at the end, you kind of get that's like all of one chapter. And the next chapter, you get sort of the action resolution to all that of Ira kind of calming her down. But
yeah, and you know, I completely agree. I think that's probably the one, but Vamola's was I think good.
Vamola's is also really good. Yeah, there's definitely not.
Oftentimes in flashbacks, I'm like kind of looking forward to getting back into the main action, even if I like the flashback. But Vamola's is like
that could be its own series.
I like the side character. Yeah, it was its own series and a good one.
Could be. You know? Yeah, it was. I mean, that was like 7 or 8 chapter flashback too. Yeah, that arc, which finished this year, I think, because we're going to be doing our awards show coming up, I think that's probably in the running, if not my sort of preemptive winner for like best arc this year.
Was that this year?
It ended this year, so I think that.
Yeah.
I might have also started this year, but I think it started a little like late last year because it was a long arc. So.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think pretty much basically like unless the Ranger Reject 3-way battle ends in the next like 3 weeks, like I think that's probably got it for me because I think Ranger Reject 4-way battle or 3-way battle that one's also very good. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to latch on to just one thing that makes it like super special because it's just really good at like fucking everything.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just like great art, great action, great characters, great storytelling. Like we said, like the second best flashbacker in manga, second only to like Oda. And I think Oda's only better really because it's like, well, he's had 25 years to practice it. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not going to talk about One Piece, but like the One Piece flashback that's going on right now or happening is also in contention for maybe one of the best One Piece flashbacks of all time. So
I think Oda like hits emotional beats maybe or like he ties in and makes a really interesting story in flashback and he ties it to his world in such a perfect way. Mm-hmm. With that said, I think DandaDan paces the flashback better. Like it's like modern and past. It's all tied into one thing. Whereas One Piece is not. It's not really. It's just its own flashback to give context for the future. DandaDan does that part better than even One Piece. So
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. DandaDan, its flashback is a part of what's happening in the modern day, and they tie together and they resolve kind of together. In One Piece, you are flashing back to see something happen. It's kind of its own mini story, and then it's over, and you come back to the present, and it isn't sort of happening at the same time as present day story in the way that DandaDan's flashbacks are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well two different uses, two exceptionally good flashbackers. But yeah,
are there any other good flashbackers?
I don't know. Maybe people could tell us in the comments if you know any really good flashback manga or anime that we could talk about. I'm trying to think. I mean, Attack on Titan, that's top of the mind because it has ended and people are talking about it. That has one really good flashback in it. I'll say that. Right in the middle of the series when they get to the basement, there's I guess that counts as a flashback.
The Marley and Me flashback, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Like flashbacks are kind of seen as a narrative crutch a lot of the time.
When they are, yeah,
and they're a tool. And I think they are a crutch for some writers, but. Yeah. I think when done well, it's just an effective tool. So yeah, let us know who's a good flashbacker in your eyes.
Awesome. Anything else on DandaDan? Where do we think?
No.
We'll play my favorite game. Where do we think we're going next? Can we predict it?
It is impossible.
Literally impossible to tell. Yeah. Do we think
impossible?
Do we think class pres, new girl? Do we think she's joining the team, or do we think she's
1 million%? It would be such a waste of this whole story, this whole like 4 or 5 chapters if she just fucks off, you know. So she's part of the crew now.
I wonder though.
I'm guessing she is like, you know how the Ghostbusters, they have that little trap that sucks all the ghosts in?
Yeah.
And traps in? I think she's going to be like the exorcist of the group. The rock exorcist of the group.
Oh, maybe, yeah. It's like she can sing demons and destroy them or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know. I'm kind of... Because usually in the past, when we've had... I mean, like with Ira and with Vamola, when they've sort of like gotten their powers or come into their own, even with like Gigi and stuff. What's different here, I think, at the end of this one is that we see her childhood friend sort of like appear as a ghost. They sing together. They resolve that. But then, I mean, in this last page, the ghost looks like it dissolves. So
yeah, she's carrying the torch for both of them now. Is kind of how I see it. It seems like her power is the exorcism power that like all of the other rockers have. Mm-hmm. To me, it kind of makes sense because she doesn't have like an easy power up to have like practical application in like a fight like Vamola or Ira did. So that's what I'm guessing, but we will see.
Well, that's where I was going to go with that. I think is kind of maybe what you're reaching for is she might end up being sort of the man in the chair type character where like, okay, she knows all these people. She knows that ghosts exists, but she doesn't have any powers. So maybe she's also like very responsible. She's the class president, all this stuff. So maybe she'll be like sort of like the brains, the man in the chair type character.
Actually,
that's maybe where I could see it going.
I think Mech Guy is the man in the chair.
I thought that too, but the man in the chair is a character archetype that very specifically is like, they do not fight. They are sort of a home base check in. Hey, can you tell me the information? Can you give me the X, Y, and Z on the situation, stuff like that. So I don't think I think the Mech Guy is like a brainy dude, but I don't think he's the man in the chair character because he goes out and
he doesn't have powers, right?
He doesn't, but he has the house, which I think is his powers. He has the shifting cubes that he'll like make into a motorcycle or a mech or whatever. Like I think that's his power is like the tech power, right? So I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes for sure.
Yeah, me too. I wonder, like, how are you think they're gonna pair off the side characters like they did with Okurin and Momo?
I don't know. I don't think they need to. I would be happy if they did because Okurin and Momo are like one of the best like romance couples in shonen, I would say.
Yeah.
They're just like incredibly well developed. And they, I'm trying to think of what words to say.
There's chemistry, you know? It's like,
there's real chemistry. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, these two are destined to be together. It's like they kind of like didn't like each other for like 20 or 30 chapters and slowly like grew to like each other more and more. And now it's like a real thing. So
yeah,
I would be okay if the relationship is developed as well as theirs is. I definitely think it could happen. I haven't seen any hints of it yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it seems like Ira likes Okurin and Gigi likes Momo. So I think there's makes sense for those two to kind of pair off into a thing. But we'll see if it even goes that route. Who knows?
And I do wonder. So, do you remember when this girl from these chapters, the class pres, when she was introduced, she was talking about vampires and stuff? I wonder if she meets Gigi. He's a little dark energy vampire like, so maybe
Evil Eye is like the edgelord.
Evil Eye is an edgelord, is very kind of vampire-y. So yeah, I do wonder if there's going to be something there. But
and she's like imagining these like abusive Twilight vampires where they're just like kind of assholes.
Yeah, BDSM vampires. Yeah,
and Evil Eye is kind of like, don't talk to me, I'll fucking kill you. So he's kind of exudes that energy a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's like every time I'm excited when arcs finish in DandaDan because I know that we usually get like 1 to 2 chapters of like chill, just like characters being goofy and talking. So, and I always like really like those chapters. I put the page in here. Oh yeah, Momo's face is on this page here.
Yeah.
It's like classic.
Momo has the best faces.
She has great faces. These are very classic, like early '60s kind of manga cartoon type faces. They're almost like not Hanna-Barbera, but like Popeye-esque. Like, if you ever read like the old Popeye stuff, that's kind of what they look like here. So, which again, I think was the 50s or 60s when that came out. So,
if you haven't read DandaDan, she's full of like old school cartoon faces. It's great.
Yeah, her and Turbo Granny are the best faces here.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a weekly manga, by the way. These art spreads.
I don't know. I don't know. How
this one to me is wild because we've talked in the past about how some of the art spreads. I can tell that it's like, oh, okay, I can tell that it's like, well, the background is like a manipulated photo, or there's a lot of repetition and stuff. But like this one today, I looked at and I was just like, nope, they drew all that. Like, they just drew that this week. Like, in a week, they like drew the whole carriage, whatever this thing is. All of these like exploding buildings. Those are maybe manipulated, but they're like explosions hand drawn, guys hand drawn.
No, dude. The author actually bombed a city and took a picture and put this up there. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. The background on this is probably the only drawn thing, or like photograph thing, but it looks natural, right? Like it looks good. I mean, this is DandaDan is a perfect example of what I think more comics and manga should aim to do, which is be good enough with your tools to be able to just take what is essentially in this last page here, a photographed background, and blend it well enough with your characters and be good enough with your whatever tools you're using to make it look good. And I think that part of what they do here, and sorry, last panel, right, is they're sort of like painting out the edges, which makes it look a little bit more dreamy, which means you don't really notice that it's like a hyper realistic background with like cartoon character. Because I mean, even in the page on the right, that's also clearly to me a manipulated photograph for the background, but also it's covered in this sort of magical dust in front of it. It's only on one panel. It's a background. It only really occupies the top third of the page. DandaDan is perfectly smart with how it does its sort of photograph manipulated backgrounds. Something that I've mentioned that doesn't do it as well, or at least where it stood out more to me, is something like Yasumi Poon Poon. And I think that's maybe part of the appeal, maybe intentional, because Poon Poon is very non-real character, the little bird people. So living in this kind of hyper-real world is, I think, part of it, but a lot of that photo manipulation, and again, Yasumi Poon Poon at this point is like, what did that come out, 2011? Like more than 10 years old. So I think technology's come a long way. But yeah, this is like, if you're a manga creator and you aren't working on how to utilize photo manipulation for backgrounds, like that's one of the big reasons why I think Tatsuyuki Nobu can do DandaDan weekly, is that this guy clearly is a master of whatever digital tools he's using. Because he can obviously just spit out a background like that on the left. I bet that took him like 10 minutes, maybe not even 10 minutes to do that background. And then he can spend time drawing the characters and making his characters likable and well executed. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's genius testament to use There's like no backgrounds, no drawn backgrounds on this page at all. Like, so he can focus his energy on the drawn background in the climax panel. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. On, actually having to sort of like draw explosions and split up buildings, which it might be another manipulation thing. But, I don't know. It's just, I mean, you'll notice, Tatsuyuki Nobu is an excellent, a prime example of sort of focusing your work on the important parts of your art, your important parts of the manga, and not worrying about the unimportant parts. I noticed like in this page here, like there is the only things that are drawn on this page are two characters, two faces, one hand, and then like one barely background bottom thing, right? These are empty backgrounds, pattern backgrounds. Even here, again, empty backgrounds, pattern backgrounds, surrounded with magic. And usually I don't like those things, but the fact is that those things can be used effectively when you just want to focus on the characters. And this is just a big character moment, and we don't care about the background. And I think Yuki Nobu, consciously or unconsciously, knows that, and knows like, I can just not draw backgrounds for this page because it's about the characters, and I'll draw the characters, and that's what's important. Whereas, here it's like, okay, it's a little bit about the background, the setting, what's happening. Let's put the stuff in.
Yeah. For sure.
So anyways, he's one of, if not the smartest modern manga artist of being able to do DandaDan weekly is like the most impressive thing. I like maybe not the best manga ever, but like one of the most impressive things is that DandaDan has been weekly for almost 3 years now, and it like has not stopped. Like it has not missed a week. Like I think it only missed the only weeks we've missed have been the generic like Golden Week, the stuff that everybody gets off, right?
By all means, I think he should be in the contention for best mangaka though. He just doesn't do anything wrong really. So it's like it's hard to not put him in top 5 or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's absolutely excellent. DandaDan is one of those things that I could talk about DandaDan every single week it's published. It's like it's that good.
It's because every chapter's good. Yeah,
every chapter's good. Yep, cool. Anything else on manga for the week? Anything else on DandaDan?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Let's. There's a couple of little news pieces, not a whole lot. We got an announcement that, hey, Icehead Gill will be ending in chapter, 51 or 50 of Weekly Shonen Jump, which I believe is this Sunday. So tomorrow, if you're watching this on the day it releases. I told myself to write a joke here about nobody being better with axes, then nope, it's not you, Gil. It's Weekly Shonen Jump.
True. I forgot this existed.
I forgot this existed while I was reading it. I don't know if you remember me talking about like chapter 3 or 4 or something and being like, I read this chapter on Sunday and we usually record on Wednesday. And it was like, I know I read this chapter and I don't remember a single thing that happened. Yeah, that one, I think I could tell from chapter 1 that it's like, this is probably canceled. It was
just very forgettable. And I think it had a terrible main character design. So that didn't help.
And
he was like 4 years old or something like that. It's like,
just not in the age range. There's a rule in, this is another thing you get from listening to a lot of Brandon Sanderson stuff. He's talked about the way that publishing companies look at young adult fiction, right? Young adult fiction is sort of a genre demographic targeting thing, right? Stuff like The Hunger Games is young adult. What else is young adult? Harry Potter is technically young adult, I think.
Red Rising.
Is Red Rising young adult?
Technically.
Okay. I read some of that book. I didn't love it.
The first 50 pages suck, and then the rest of it is good.
Okay. I maybe only read about 80 pages of it, so... but anyways, the thing about young adult fiction is that you really want to target for the sort of target audience plus 2 or 3 years, right? So if you're... or I guess it's like minus 2 or 3 years, depending on which angle you look at it. Basically, Harry Potter is 11 going into school, right? If you're 9 or 10, you will still right, you will still like reading about an 11-year-old going to school. If you're 14 or 15, you are a lot less likely to enjoy reading about an 11-year-old going to school, right? And so that's why Icehead Gill, I think, partially failed, is that if you're in, again, target demographic for Weekly Shonen Jump, 14-year-old boys, I think if your protagonist is an 8-year-old boy, I think they are checked out, right? I think, the sort of 14 to 16 age range, which is what we see a lot in shonen. And there's a reason for that, is that that's literally just young adult demographics, right? People are willing to read a character who's like maybe 1 or 2 years younger or 2 or 3 years older. They do not, young adult fiction does not feature children characters very often, right?
Because it's relatable. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The younger characters are unrelatable. People their age are relatable. So, yeah, I said Gil, I think, went too. I think if Gil was a little bit older, I think it just works better.
I think if Gil's mom or dad didn't let him dye his hair and get that weird haircut, he would also be more popular.
He looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh character, right?
He looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh character.
He looks like Yugi. He just literally looks a little bit like Yugimoto.
He does. He really does. He also looks like Rengoku from Demon Slayer. Yeah. The guy from the movie.
Child Rengoku.
A mini-me version of
Chibi
him.
Rengoku, yep.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we got a trailer for the live-action Yu Yu Hakusho, and it looks not as bad as, say, the Dragon Ball movie, but also not as good as One Piece live-action. Japanese made and produced. Don't have a whole lot of confidence in this. Yu Yu Hakusho is one of, if not your favorite series, right? So I'm interested.
It's not my favorite, but it is one of my favorites.
I'm interested to hear your opinion on it if you saw it.
This does not matter to me. I'm not going to watch it. I have no interest in watching.
Well, and that's a sad testament to someone who says it is one of their favorite series. Sees the live action trailer, not interested in it. That's.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. I thought One Piece would be terrible, and how wrong I was about that. So I can't justifiably make a call on this since my credibility is all dried up. But it doesn't look great. It doesn't capture the feeling of Yu Yu Hakusho. It looks like kind of just Yu Yu Hakusho condensed, so all the action stuff is there.
I wondered because I thought that like the guy with the big buff dude with the little thin sunglasses, isn't he like way later in the story? He's not.
No, he's
is he pretty early? Okay.
Yeah, like maybe like 10 episodes and he shows up, but he's the main antagonist. So like,
okay.
Yeah. He's just kind of an asshole that shows up and he's like, "Hey, Yusuke, get stronger, fight me in this tournament." And then he kicks Yusuke's ass and kicks everyone's ass and leaves. And then he's dealt with later. But anyway, he looks good in. He's like him and Toguro. They're both named Toguro. Him and the little one.
There's two Toguro. Why would you put two characters with the same name?
Because they're brothers.
Oh, okay. It's the last name thing. Okay, gotcha.
The big one is the younger one. Anyway, they look good. They look very good. The rest of them don't really look like their characters, but they look close enough. Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, Bruce. Like, nothing about that trailer looked bad.
Do you think, here's my question. Do you think that Yu Yu Hakusho should be easier or harder to adapt than One Piece into live action?
Everything in the universe, in the world, should be easier to adapt than One Piece.
Yes, okay, I agree. Which is why I think that this is a little bit more disappointing, as it's like, oh, this should be really easy, or way easier than One Piece to make me buy into watching it. And I watch it and I go, not really interested. And if you're not really interested and you're a huge fan of the manga, then that's kind of telling, right? That if their trailer can't grasp the major fans, then because I know that when I first saw the trailers for One Piece, I was like, okay, I'm still tentative, but that looked really good, and that's how I felt about a lot of the trailers. So. This trailer is not very good. So I'm just not.
It looked as good as it could be without the millions of dollars behind it that One Piece had. But the thing is, if you don't have the millions upon millions to spend, then don't make an anime.
Don't make a giant action-packed special effects thing. Yeah.
But the thing is, for the budget it probably had, and for what it is, that trailer looked as good as it can be.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'll watch it, and I don't think it will be good. So we will see.
All right, we got one last thing on the news. I saw this just crop up, I think, today. So apparently, you can tell me if you even knew that they had this. Crunchyroll digital manga platform is going away December 11th, so in about a month now. Did you even know that Crunchyroll had a digital manga platform?
I did, because that's why Grand Blue stopped getting posted on our manga. Because Crunchyroll... but that's the only thing I knew it had. I never used it. I
read a little bit of a thread about this. Apparently it was an awful reader, which is not surprising because as good as passable as Manga Plus and Viz are now, even as soon as like, how long ago was it? Only like 18 months, 2 years ago. There was an issue on, I think, Viz where it's like you would get to the second to last page and it would just push you to the first page. And I dealt with reading shit on Viz for like 2 years with that. And it was awful.
That's that. And Manga Plus did that too. It like scrolled you all the way to the top or whatever.
Yeah, you would like get to the last page and then it would just like, whoop, here you go at the start. And you had to scroll all the way back to read the very last page. I literally dealt with that for like at least a year.
Anyways, by the way, I think you have to be kind of brain dead to fumble the bag as much as Crunchyroll did. Like they were ahead licensing manga. Manga Plus didn't exist. It was Manga Plus didn't exist. Viz Reader wasn't as big. Like they were kind of on the forefront of licensing online manga, and they fumbled it. Like just make your reader good.
Yeah,
like pour the money into it, and you have millions. Right today. Yep.
I mean, I didn't know all that historical stuff because if they were licensing stuff before, Viz Reader and Manga Plus were big, especially if it was the Shonen Jump stuff, like if they had, if they've got One Piece on their site or, whatever other big new things there are, Jujutsu Kaisen, right?
They had the industry connections to do it too. Like I don't know. I don't know what happened there. That's crazy.
Wonder. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because manga has, especially since COVID, I would say, has exploded because anime's gotten bigger, which in turn just kind of grows manga along with it. So
true. Like all nerdy hobbies, this also exploded for sure.
Yeah. So we don't really care. I never read a single thing on Crunchyroll digital manga reader. So
it's just like it feels like Blockbuster DVD levels of failure.
Oh, yeah. That's probably a good comparison where it's just like, they think they're not threatened by all this other stuff. Or this seems more to me like they just didn't really care, right? Crunchyroll is an anime first platform. They spink all their money and stuff into that. I mean, do you remember it
is insane not to care. It's just crazy not to care, especially since they licensed a bunch of stuff and then sat on it, and then everything blew up right after. Okay, that's crazy.
I mean, do you remember? Because I remember maybe 8 years ago when Crunchyroll was not a legitimate site. Like Crunchyroll was a pirate site that I used to go on to watch anime back in like 2013, and then they went legit. Maybe it was a little before then. Maybe it was like 2011, 2012. But they like went legit. I'm surprised they were able to make that turn. Crossing my fingers, manga decks. Let's do it.
I'd actually hate if they did.
I mean,
stay the way everything. I'd like everything to stay the way it is. I feel like in terms of manga readability, we were in the best spot we could be in, I'd say a year or two ago, and we are currently in a good spot. And
it's still definitely okay. Yeah. There is definitely some stuff though where it's just like, oh, I'd really like to read X, or I see I see this manga show up on the top 10 list. Oh, let's go see if there's a translation of it available anywhere. And it's like, no, there's not. There might be physical publications, which again in the West are 3 or 4 times as expensive as they are in Japan. So not as easy to just say like, oh yeah, I'd like to catch up on, this thing that has 18 volumes. Well, in Japan, 18 volumes, they're like $3 each, right? Costs you, $60 to catch up on it? Cool, that's not that much. Yeah. Here, 18 volumes, $200. It's like, I'm not spending that. Yeah. But anyways, we don't have to get into the talk of like why we read pirated manga, but someday we will.
It's kind of crazy. We had more access to these niche manga when manga was less popular.
True.
Because the suits weren't really breathing down people's necks to stop scanlation. Yep. So all of the passion projects that people wanted to to translate got translated. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's hard to do this like large amount of hard work for free when there's also legal action that could be taken against you.
It's a much more fraught. A much more fraught time to be a fan translator, especially if you're trying to grab something really popular. This is just something I ran into very recently. Was I was reading Urasawa's works, and I really wanted to go back and read Master Keaton, which is maybe the first really big thing he did. There's no official site that has Master Keaton on it. There's also no fan scans that I could find, and there's also no official sites, no hard copies of Master Keaton in English. So it's just impossible for me to read the entirety of Master Keaton in English. So, hey, if you listen to this, you're a fan translation, go translate Master Keaton for me. We'll broadcast it on the show.
We'll broadcast.
That's all I got. I can't pay you. I'm sorry. No, I don't make that much money we actually make no money from the podcast yet. But hey, if you tell your friends about us, get the word out there, we're close. We're not that close, but we're like a tenth of the way there. So,
true.
All right, that's
we'll
it for
be
news.
making like $5.
Gautam, tell me what else you've been doing. You watched some movies and TV shows this week, I heard.
I did. Yeah, I don't know. It's been like I don't watch stuff that often, and then all of a sudden I want to watch a lot of things. So yesterday I saw Gone Girl. Okay. Today I saw Logan Lucky and Fargo season 1. All crazy, fucked up, cool shows, except for Logan Lucky, which was just fun. I can't say much about any of them really because they all hinge on their plot points. Especially Gone Girl, it it's impossible to describe without spoiling it in some way. So yeah, just go check out Gone Girl. It is a lot of fun, very funny movie. Yeah. I truly do believe that. I truly do believe that it is a genuinely funny and buck wild movie.
Buck wild is how I would say. It's wild. You got to be prepared for sort of.
It is a black comedy.
Black. Yeah, it is a dark, funny movie.
Yeah.
Also intense.
But go watch it. Yeah. Also intense. Also all that stuff. But yeah, go check that out. Yeah. How about you, Bruce?
So I finally got back to reading a little bit of manga. Okay, the viewer is just like crashing for some reason. Let's see if it'll open. I got back. I mentioned, I don't know how many months ago, a couple of months ago, that I was reading a series called Ender Geister, by what is his other's name? Takashi Omoyama. Something, I had it on my little reader on my phone, and something about it was like, I'm going to click on that. Maybe it was his cover. I don't know. Ender Geister is really weird and like, I really like it. I don't know how to describe it other than I think it has gorgeous art. It's a little bit, I guess here's my plug for Ender Geister. It's like, what if DandaDan was like way more horny, and way more dark in its action, and the author loved Western movies. So it's got a little bit of like the Chainsaw Man kind of influenced by movie stuff in it. Like every chapter is named after a movie. And it'll have themes, and at the end, the translators will be like, this chapter was called, I'm trying to think of what something like, oh, this one was called,
this one's called Hellraiser.
I'm not even kidding. I think one of the last like 10 chapters was called Hellraiser.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like horror stuff. I don't even know how to sell this. This is about like magical people fighting demons and technology, and a lot of tits hang out. But the action's really cool, and the story, while it simultaneously makes like no sense, is also so simple that it doesn't matter, because it's just you just like point the characters at the next little demon to fight or like thing to do.
That sounds fun enough. It does sound kind like of every manga. Ever magical people fight demons, but it sounds like
it's very seinen though, right? They're all adults, and it's all, the main character's name is like his name is like literally the main character's name is Akira Kurosawa, right? Like and he like acknowledges, he's like, yes, I am named after the greatest like Japanese movie director, and he like is possessed by a demon, and he like is a kind of this assassin thing. But there's some interesting flashbacks of like where these demons possess certain characters, but it's just like wild. Like at one point, here's something that happens. At one point, they are trying to infiltrate a college, and they are being hunted like this. This is the main girl and the main guy, Akira Kurosawa. They're being like hunted by assassins. They go to this college. I don't even know why, right? I don't even think it really matters why. It's just like, oh, what's the next set piece? A college. And one of the assassins has like burnt some kind of incense and has taken control of all of these people, these college students, right? Which of course, because like I said, this is a very ecchi series, very seinen, very adult. Taking control of all these people. They're all just like stripped naked in her office, like literally having an orgy. The main character like bursts in, they fight, and then it's like there's this. They do. Oh, one of the chapters is called Wanted, right? Have you ever seen the movie Wanted, like the bullet curving movie?
I have. That was a bad movie.
It's not a very good movie, yeah. But there's like at the end, like after this, the Akira Kurosawa is like running away. His arm gets chopped off, and then he gets like bullet bent. The sniper like bullet bends and almost shoots him from behind a building. But he had his other team in place, and they shot the bullet beforehand. It's like, it's just wild, like goofy.
Oh, got it. So it's like over the top, hyper violent nonsense.
Yes,
it's like hyper sex, hyper violent.
It's yeah, very very much. It's over the top. Yeah, it's yes, exactly what you said. Hypersexual, hyper violent, hyper horror. Very much like you'll see, people's arms getting ripped off, like very violent stuff. People's chest cavities exploded. I really like it in a way. It's very appealing as it's like it. the best comparison I can make is it's kind of like a more seinen version of something like DandaDan or Chainsaw Man or, I don't know. It's just like, it's like B-movie schlock, right? But it's like, the art is so fantastic though. This author is really good at action paneling and just great character designs. The characters are just like wild. There's this whole, I don't even know how I can describe it. There's this whole like flashback current day scene with one of their like bosses is this like older guy, and he's met this like other older dude, and they're both like hyper powerful. And it's like the whole battle between them is like the good guy, old guy getting beaten up, but getting a couple hits in on the other guy. And then it turns out that, every time he punched him, he put like a magical seal on him. And so at the end, he's like sealed the other bad guy up. And the dude on the other end is like a old fat guy. Like, it's not like this like super fit old dude. It's like, this guy looks like a boring, like, 50-year-old office man. And he's, like the strongest guy we fought so far.
I do love that. I do love that. The trope where this old, like out of shape looking person ends up being strong. Yeah. I think One Piece does that a lot. I think.
One Piece has that.
I don't know. A lot of series. The one with the Immortals has that. I'm forgetting what it's called.
Is it like the To You and to Eternity or whatever?
It's a dude with a hat. He has a hat. He's a villain. He's an evil immortal, and there's the main character's a good immortal.
Oh, I don't think I've read that, but I thought maybe.
Ajin?
Ajin. Yeah. Ajin. Yeah. I have read some of that. Yeah. Yeah. The main guy is like a 40-year-old. Yeah. That's one of the best bad guys in manga, by the way. But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ender Geister. It's a lot of fun. It's, again, very hard R18 warning on this one for sure. But I caught up fully on it as far as what's translated. I think it's like 70 something chapters, but yeah, I don't know. Just enjoyable. Just schlock at the end of the night for me. So
yeah. I mean, like, potato chips have to exist for a reason, right? They're still yummy.
And sometimes you want to eat them right before bed. So it's like...
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Cool. I mean, I think that's all we've got, Gautam. Anything else you want to throw in here at the end of the show?
No, sirree. I'm all good.
Cool. Let's get out of here. Hey, thanks everyone for listening or watching. Don't forget, leave us some feedback, comments, upvote. You have any more B-schlock you want to listen to or read? Let us know in the comments. Any positive reinforcement you can leave us, please go do that. We really appreciate comments. Check out my Twitter and Patreon. They're linked in the description. Gautam, don't forget to tell our viewers goodbye.
Goodbye, viewers.
Thank you for being with us yet again this week, and don't forget to read more manga.